Okay, I have a question for you, and I want you to be brutally honest with me. No podcast answers.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Do you feel like the same exact human being when you are sitting alone in, your home office, staring at a spreadsheet, trying to find a missing decimal point?
Ugh, I can feel the headache already.
Right. Versus when you're at a wedding reception, maybe 3 drinks deep, holding court with a group of complete strangers.
Oh, wow, that is a loaded question.
It is. But answer it honestly.
Honestly, no, not even remotely close. The spreadsheet me is, he's this cold, logical, slightly irritable machine. He's all about precision.
And the wedding me.
The wedding me is, well, he's a lot louder, for one. He's looser. He's telling stories that might be, let's say, 80% true. He's practically a different species.
Exactly. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we all feel that fracture. We all have these versions of ourselves, the parent version, the boss version, the Saturday night version.
Right. It's called context-dependent personality. It's a known thing.
Yeah. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. We usually treat that as a flaw or a bug.
Yeah.
They call it being fake or wearing a mask. We just sort of drift between these states unconsciously, letting the room dictate who shows up.
We are reactive, absolutely. The environment pushes a button and a version of us just pops out. We don't really choose it.
But what if you stop drifting? What if you grab the wheel? What if, and this is going to sound a little sci-fi, I know, what if you could actually design those versions of yourself, name them, and then, deploy them like a special ops team for your own life?
Now we are definitely getting into the deep end.
We are. Today we are doing a deep dive into this fascinating, slightly obsessive, and incredibly detailed document. It's titled How I Experience Subpersonalities.
Right.
It's written by a creator who goes by the name Max of all trades. And let me tell you, this is not some dry psychology textbook. This is a field manual,
Yeah.
a user guide from a guy who has spent his entire life building a literal cast of 10 internal characters to help him navigate existence.
It is a remarkable document. It's a case study in what we might call intentional authorship of the personality. Max hasn't just noticed he has mood swings, he's gamified them. He's built an entire system around them.
He calls it a museum of the mind. And honestly, when I first started reading this, my first thought was, is this guy okay? Is this like multiple personality disorder?
I'm glad you brought that up right away because that is the elephant in the room. We need to be absolutely crystal clear about this.
Yeah.
We are not talking about dissociative identity disorder, DDA. That's a serious clinical condition, often rooted in trauma, where you lose time or lose control. This is the exact opposite of that. This is about gaining control.
So it's not a fracturing, it's an organizing.
Precisely. It's about taking the messy, conflicting desires and voices we all have in our heads and organizing them into a coherent team, a board of directors.
Like turning the noise in your head into a symphony.
Or at least a well-run corporate board meeting. A little less beautiful, maybe, but very effective.
Right.
So here is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack Max's system. We're going to meet his cast, all 10 of them, and see how they interact, how they argue, how they collaborate.
And we'll look at the tools, the evolution of the whole thing.
Yeah, we're going to look at how technology from old school Uno cards to modern AI makes this kind of self-creation possible in a way it never was before. And we're going to figure out if we should all be building our own internal museums.
I'm ready. Let's open the doors.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics. Section 1, the cast. The source material defines subpersonalities in a very specific, very clean way. It says they are coherent patterns of thought, emotion, and motivation.
And coherent is the heavy lifter in that sentence. It's the most important word.
How so?
Well, we all have random thoughts, I want a taco or I hate this traffic. Those aren't subpersonalities. Those are just impulses, static. A subpersonality is a pattern that repeats. It has a worldview. It has a consistent way of approaching and solving problems. It's a signal in the noise.
Got it. The source also draws a really hard line between this system and something like internal family systems or IFS therapy. I've heard of IFS. That's where you find your inner child or your exile.
Right. Generally, yes. IFS is a powerful therapeutic model, no question. But it's usually about excavation. It's archaeology of the self.
Archaeology, I like that.
You go into therapy to discover parts of yourself that were formed, often by trauma or your childhood experiences. You find the protector part of you who learned to be aggressive because you were bullied when you were 7 years old. It's about finding, understanding, and healing those pre-existing parts.
But Max's system seems different. It feels less like archaeology and more like Well, architecture.
That is the perfect distinction. This is intentional authorship. Max isn't just asking, who am I? He's also asking, who do I need to be to achieve my goals? He is consciously designing these characters to serve specific functions in his life. He's not just finding them, he's actively building them.
There's this analogy in the text that I think just unlocks the whole concept for me. Max writes, "They are not masks, they are lenses."
Yes, this is crucial. Let's really dig into that for a second.
Please.
A mask hides you. It's a performance. If I put on a mask of the tough guy, I am pretending to be something I'm not. I am actively hiding my vulnerability. It feels fake because it is fake. It creates a split.
Right, you're projecting an image that isn't connected to your internal stat.
Exactly. But a lens is something you look through. You're still the one looking. Your consciousness is still there behind the lens. The lens just changes your focus.
So if I'm looking through the tough guy lens, I'm still me, but I'm seeing the world differently.
Exactly. You are prioritizing different beta streams. If you look through a compassionate lens, you suddenly notice people's pain, their body language, their tone of voice. If you switch to a strategic lens, you stop seeing their pain and you start noticing leverage, opportunities, and long-term outcomes. You aren't faking it. You're just shifting your optical focus. Max's characters are simply named personified lenses.
And he calls them internal advisors, which I love. It completely reframes your internal world. It turns your emotions into consultants.
Think about how powerful that is. Normally, if you feel fear, you just suffer through it. It's this overwhelming amorphous cloud.
Right, it's just a bad feeling.
But if you have a subpersonality whose job is risk assessment, then that fear isn't just a bad feeling anymore. It's a report from your advisor. It's data. You can say, okay, advisor, thank you for the data. I see the potential downside. Now I'm going to consult my courage advisor to see how we should handle it.
It depersonalizes the emotion. It gives you that little bit of distance, that little gap.
Exactly. It creates a space between the stimulus and the response. And in that space, as Viktor Frankl said, lies our growth and our freedom. You get to choose.
All right, I think we set the stage. I want to meet these advisors. Max has a team of 10. And when I first looked at this list, I'll be honest, it felt a little Dungeons & Dragons. I was waiting for him to list their hit points and armor class.
It definitely shares some DNA with role-playing games, which is not an accident, and we'll get to that. But the psychology behind this specific mix is actually quite sophisticated.
So let's break them down. But instead of just reading a roster, I want to look at them in pairs or in groups, because the source makes it clear they are designed to balance each other out.
Good idea. The system's strength is in the interplay, not the individual parts.
Okay, let's start with what I would call the engine, the core driving forces. We have Addie and Val.
Okay, a great pairing to start with. So Addie is described as optimism, warmth, and emotional light. Addie lives entirely in the present moment. This is the part of you that brings the vibe.
Addie is the one who wants to go to the party. Addie is the one who says, everything is going to be fine, let's just enjoy the sunshine.
Right. Pure presence. But if you only had Addie running the show, you'd be a total hedonist. You'd never get any work done because you'd be too busy enjoying that sunlight.
Which is where Val comes in.
Exactly. Val. Discipline, pride, excellence. The source says Val is singularly focused on mastery.
Val is the drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Val is the will. Val doesn't care if you're having fun. Val cares if you hit the standard, if you do the reps.
Val is the one who gets you to the gym at 6 a.m. when it's cold and dark.
So the conflict there is incredibly obvious. Addie wants a nap on the couch. Val wants to run a marathon.
It's the classic pleasure principle versus reality principle. But in a healthy system, and this is the absolute key to the whole thing, they aren't enemies. They are partners. They're on the same team.
How does that work in practice?
Val makes sure the work gets done so that Addie can enjoy truly guilt-free relaxation later. And just as importantly, Addie reminds Val to celebrate a win, to actually enjoy the fruits of that labor, so Val doesn't just burn out in a quest for perfection. They stabilize each other.
I like that. A built-in system for work-life balance. Okay, let's look at the boardroom, the decision makers. We have Bannock and Kenny.
Yes. So Bannock is defined as leadership, responsibility, and unity. This is the CEO, the adult in the room. When the house is on fire, Bannock is the one holding the fire extinguisher, calmly barking orders.
The integrated responsible self. And Kenny.
Kenny is practical wisdom, realism, and caution. Kenny is the CFO, the skeptic, the risk manager.
I feel like I have a very, very loud Kenny in my head. He's the voice at 3 a.m. saying, you know that great idea you had yesterday is stupid and you're going to go broke.
We all have a Kenny, and our
Wow.
typical reaction is to try and silence him. We think he's negative. We call it self-doubt or imposter syndrome and try to crush it.
Right. Get out of my head, Kenny.
But Max's system reframes Kenny not as a hater, but as an auditor.
An auditor.
Yes. Think about it. An auditor isn't trying to destroy the company. A good auditor is trying to make sure the math adds up so the company survives and thrives. So if Bannock, the CEO, says, we're going to launch this huge new project, Kenny's job isn't to say no. It's to ask, okay, great, do we have the resources? What's the downside? What's plan B if this fails?
So instead of fighting the self-doubt, you invite the self-doubt into the meeting, give it a seat at the table, and ask for its report.
Precisely. You validate its function, which ironically lowers its volume and anxiety. You use its critical eye as a tool.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. Moving on, we have the creatives, or the mind characters, Tommy and Tira.
Right. Tommy is creativity, invention, and raw curiosity. He's the tinkerer. The engineer, he wants to build things just to see if they can be built. He's obsessed with the how.
The problem solver.
Well, Tira.
And Tira is wisdom, patience, and perspective. She is the philosopher, the strategist. While Tommy is excitedly figuring out how to build the bomb, Tira is the one who steps back and asks, should we build the bomb? What are the second-order consequences? So it's that classic dynamic, engineering versus ethics.
Or execution versus strategy. Or tactics versus the long game. You need both. A system with only Tommy would create a lot of cool, useless, and possibly dangerous things. A system with only Tira would think forever and never build anything.
Then we have the heart and social team, Kelly and Mac.
Yeah, this is the interpersonal wing of the operation. Kelly is empathy, care, and emotional grounding, the nurturer, the heart. If you're hurting, or someone else is, Kelly is the one who shows up.
And Mac.
Mac is humor, adaptability, and social energy. Mac is the diplomat. He's the one who can walk into any room and find common ground with anyone. Mac is your wedding me that you mentioned at the start of the show.
So Kelly feels the emotion deeply, and Mac translates that emotional data into social connection.
That's a really good way to put it. Kelly is the internal feeling state. Mac is the external relating skill. Kelly ensures you're authentic. Mac ensures you're effective.
Finally, we get to the ones that, for me, were the most interesting, the shadow characters, or the edge characters, as the source sometimes calls them, Devin and Liz.
And why did they fascinate you the most?
Because they seem like the parts of ourselves we're actively taught to suppress or hide. Let's start with Devin. He's described as stoicism, strength, and comfortable with darkness.
Yes. Devin is the one who can handle the funeral. Devin is the one who can have the hard conversation. Devin is the one who can face a crisis without shattering. In a lot of modern self-help and spiritual circles, people try to love and light their way out of darkness.
Right, toxic positivity.
Exactly. Max's system acknowledges that sometimes life is grim, it's painful, and you need a character, a part of you, who can stand in that grimness without breaking. You need someone who can look into the abyss and not flinch. That's Devin.
And then there's Liz. Charisma, ambition, dominance.
Oh, Liz. This is the one that people are often the most ashamed of. The desire to be famous, the desire to win, the desire to be the alpha in the room.
Yeah, we're taught that's ego. That's narcissism. We're taught to be humble, to suppress that.
But suppressing it doesn't make it go away. It just makes it come out sideways. It becomes passive aggression or resentment or jealousy. By naming her Liz and giving her a legitimate seat at the table, Max can actually use that powerful ambition when it's appropriate, like when he's giving a speech or closing a deal, and then politely ask her to step back when he's just hanging out with his family.
It's compartmentalization, but healthy. It's conscious.
It's integration. That's the word. You aren't cutting off the limb. You're teaching it when and how to move.
So that's the cast, 10 characters.
Yeah.
Heart, mind, will, shadow, grounding. It's a full internal ecosystem. But here's the million-dollar question for me. How did he build this? Because nobody just wakes up one morning with 10 fully formed, homunculi in their brain.
No, absolutely not. And the source document is really honest and vulnerable about this. It traces an evolution that I think mirrors the creative journey of a lot of people. It starts, as these things often do, in childhood.
Stage 1. Objects. This was a great detail. Max talks about writing names on Uno cards and making them into action figures.
I love this detail so much. It's so pure. You're a kid, you don't have the fancy toys, you don't have the budget, so you project a soul onto a piece of cardboard. This red 5 is the hero, Addie. This blue 7 is the villain, Devin.
It's incredibly low fidelity, but it's pure imagination.
The imagination is doing 99% of the heavy lifting. The object is just a placeholder, a physical anchor for the idea.
Then he moves to stage 2. Worlds, specifically video games.
Now the fidelity bumps up a notch. You're playing a role-playing game, you get to the character creation screen, you name your character Devin, you put all your skill points into strength, you choose the stoic dialogue options, you are literally test driving the personality.
You get to see what it feels like to make decisions through that lens.
In a safe, simulated environment where the stakes are zero. It's a practice field for identity.
Then comes stage 3. Narratives and visuals, writing stories, drawing pictures of them, and the source notes. This is where things get really hard. It says this stage has high friction, but high depth.
This is what I call the valley of death for most creative people. I think anyone who's tried to make anything will recognize this feeling.
Absolutely.
You have this vivid, beautiful, complex idea of a character in your head, but your drawing skills are garbage. Or you try to write a story about them, and the dialogue feels wooden and clunky. There is this massive, painful gap between your taste and your ability.
It's a friction, the resistance of the medium.
Exactly, and that friction, that pain of not being good enough often kills the entire process. You stop developing your inner world because it's too discouraging to see it fail on the page or on the canvas.
But then, everything changes. We hit the modern era.
Yeah.
Stage 5 in the document. Acceleration. AI.
This is the game changer. And I know AI is hugely controversial and there are many valid debates to be had about it, but in this specific context, personal introspection and self-creation, it is revolutionary.
The source has a quote that just stopped me in my tracks. It says, "Expression speed approaches thought speed."
Expression speed approaches thought speed. Let's just sit with that for a second. Let's unpack what that actually means.
Okay.
Before AI, if Max wanted to hear a song that he felt Liz would sing, something ambitious and pop punk and driving, he would have to learn guitar, learn bass, learn drums, learn music theory, learn how to mix and master, write lyrics, learn how to sing.
It's a 5 or 10 year project, minimum.
Right. The friction is immense. But with the current generative AI tools, he can just type a prompt describing the vibe, the instruments, the theme of the lyrics, and he can hear a version of that song in 30 seconds.
Okay, but I have to ask the question everyone is thinking. Isn't that cheating?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that cheapen the connection if you didn't earn it through all that hard work?
That's the classic and very understandable argument. But we have to look at the goal. What is the goal here? Max isn't trying to win a Grammy. He isn't trying to sell albums on Spotify. He is trying to communicate with himself.
He's trying to make the internal external.
Exactly. He is trying to create a mirror. If the goal is simply to see your own reflection clearly, does it really matter if you painstakingly ground the glass by hand for 10 years or if you bought a perfectly good mirror at a store? The goal is the reflection.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
If the goal is utility for self-understanding, then speed and fidelity are what matter.
Speed matters because it keeps the feedback loop incredibly tight. He has a fleeting emotion, he generates an image or a song that matches that emotion, and suddenly that abstract internal feeling has a concrete face and a voice. It becomes real to him instantly. The idea doesn't die in the valley of death.
The source calls this a post-medium era.
Yes, because the medium, whether it's text or an MP3 or a JPEG, is just a container. It becomes disposable. The idea is the real asset. Which leads to this concept that I just love. Max says he creates fan fiction for his own intellectual property.
That concept absolutely cracked me up. Fan fiction for your own soul.
It sounds incredibly narcissistic on the surface, doesn't it? But think about it for a second. We, as a culture, obsess over Harry Potter. We obsess over the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We spend thousands of hours analyzing Tony Stark's psychology or debating Captain America's ethics.
Sure.
Why? Because these characters are powerful archetypes. They help us understand courage and sacrifice and ambition. They are lenses for understanding human nature. Max is just saying, why not build my own set of archetypes that are tailored specifically to my own psyche?
So instead of asking what would Captain America do, he asks, what would Bannock do?
Exactly. And for Max, Bannock is a much better guide than Captain America because Bannock was designed by Max for Max. Bannock understands the specific challenges of Max's life.
Okay, so we have the cast, they're fully realized, and we have the modern tools to bring them to life with minimal friction. But let's get practical. On a day-to-day basis, how does he actually interact with them? The source breaks this down into 6 mediums of connection.
Right. This is the user manual for the system. This is the how-to part.
First up, and this is the most straightforward, reflection mediums. Things like journaling, internal dialogue.
This is the baseline. This is the foundation of the whole practice. This is literally sitting with a notebook or a blank document and writing, Bannock, we need to fix the budget, Addie, but I really want to buy that new camera. You're basically script writing your own internal monologue.
What's the benefit of writing it down like that?
It forces clarity. You can't just have a vague, undefined anxiety floating around in your head. You have to articulate the specific conflict. You have to give each voice its turn to speak, and in doing so, you often see the path to a compromise.
Then we have number 2, expression mediums. And this is where the AI comes in heavy. The source says Max has created over 1,700 songs.
1,700, it's a staggering number.
That is, I mean, let's call a spade here. That's obsessive. That's a truly insane amount of content for an audience of one.
It is, but we have to look at the format. The source is clear. They are mostly 2 to 3 minutes long. He calls them emotional snapshots. He's not writing rock operas here. He's capturing a mood.
But why music? Why not just write about the mood in his journal? What does music do?
Music bypasses the prefrontal cortex. Logic is slow. Music is fast. Music is a direct line to the emotional and nervous systems.
Okay.
If you want to change your state, let's say you want to move from feeling sluggish and unmotivated to feeling driven and powerful, you can try to talk yourself into it. Like, come on, Max, you can do this. Get to work. That's hard. That takes a lot of willpower. Or you can put on a Val playlist, something with a heavy bass, a driving beat, aggressive lyrics about discipline, and your body responds instantly. Your heart rate changes. Your posture might change. It's a biohack.
You're using audio as a kind of pharmacological intervention. You're dosing yourself with specific emotions on demand.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
That leads perfectly to the third medium, which I found the most, let's just say, experimental. Embodiment mediums.
Ah, yes. This is where we get into actor territory. This is where it gets weird for some people.
Max talks about consciously changing his posture, his clothing, even the way he walks, to match a particular character.
This is based on a real scientific field called embodied cognition. The core idea is that the mind doesn't just live in the brain. The body informs the mind just as much as the mind informs the body. The body tells the brain how to feel.
So give me an example. If he needs to tap into Devin the Stoic, what does he physically do?
He might consciously drop his shoulders, slow his breathing down. He might walk with a heavier, more grounded, deliberate stride. The source even mentions he might literally put on a different jacket, one that he associates with being tougher or more resilient.
I'm just picturing this guy walking down the street, switching his walk every 3 blocks. It's a little funny to imagine.
It might look funny from the outside, sure, but think about the internal utility. If you are walking into a high-stakes negotiation, do you want to walk in as your anxious, scurrying, self-conscious self? Or do you want to physically inhabit the Bannock persona, upright spine, open chest, taking up space, making eye contact? You are hacking your own confidence from the body up.
It's fake it till you make it, but in a very systematic way.
I'd rephrase that slightly. It's embody it until you become it.
Okay, the fourth medium is environmental. Wallpapers on his phone and computer, room design, objects on a desk.
This is all about creating an external memory system. Our brains are leaky. We forget our intentions constantly. We get distracted.
All the time.
So you set a wallpaper of an AI image you generated for Tara on your phone. And every time you unlock your phone to mindlessly scroll social media, you get a 1-second micro reminder. Be wise. See the big picture. Is this the best use of your time? It's a constant subliminal nudge back towards your chosen identity.
Fifth is narrative. Writing scenes where the characters interact with each other.
We touched on this earlier. This is what makes the system feel alive. It creates the relationships between the parts. If Bannock and Addie never talk, the system is brittle. But if you write a short story where they argue about a vacation and eventually forge a compromise, you've modeled a new problem-solving pathway for your own brain. It makes the whole system dynamic and resilient.
And finally, number 6, system mediums. This is the scaffolding. Spreadsheets, Notion databases, character sheets.
This is just the librarian work, the curation.
Yeah.
If you have 1,700 songs and 500 images and 100 stories, you need a database. Otherwise, it's not a museum, it's just a hoard. A museum requires careful curation and organization to be useful.
And that curation point brings us to a massive theme in this document, something he calls the boredom cure. Max frames this entire decade-long project as a kind of war against passive consumption.
This is where the personal project blossoms into a much larger societal critique.
He contrasts what he calls the old model versus the new model. The old model, which most of us live in, is, I'm bored, I feel empty, what should I watch on Netflix?
Which is really asking, which algorithm should steer my consciousness for the next 2 hours? You are surrendering your attention to a machine that is designed to keep you passive. You are a consumer.
The new model is, I'm bored, I feel empty, what should I create?
Agency. The locus of control shifts from external to internal. You become a producer of your own experience.
But Max takes it a step further, which is where it gets really interesting. He talks about creating a loop. He says he primarily consumes his own output. When he's tired, he doesn't watch TV. He puts on a playlist of his own music or reads through his own stories.
And this is where the critics and skeptics usually jump in. They hear that and they immediately say, this is a dangerous echo chamber. You're just smelling your own fumes. It's the definition of narcissistic isolation.
Exactly. That was my first reaction. If I only listen to songs I wrote based on feelings I already have, how do I learn anything new? How do I grow? Isn't he just trapping himself in a perfectly curated hall of mirrors?
It's a very valid fear. And if the system were designed poorly, it would absolutely be a hall of mirrors. But the source material offers a powerful counter-argument, which he calls the diversity engine.
Explain that concept. How is this a diversity engine?
Max isn't a single voice. He has intentionally designed and cultivated 10 distinct voices. And those 10 voices fundamentally disagree on what matters.
Okay.
Val, the disciplinarian, hates what Addie, the pleasure seeker, loves. Tira, the long-term thinker, questions what Bannock, the leader, wants to decide right now. Kenny, the skeptic, pokes holes in every idea Tommy, the inventor, comes up with. Because he has designed a diverse internal cast, his so-called echo chamber is actually a debating hall. It's a writer's room.
So he's not just agreeing with himself. He's staging and moderating a structured argument with himself.
Right, but, and this is a critical caveat mentioned in the source, the system must continue to ingest high-quality outside knowledge. The museum can't be sealed off from the world.
Right. The debaters need new material to talk about.
Precisely. So Max still reads constantly. He reads history, philosophy, psychology, science, but instead of just reading a book, he reads it for the characters.
What does that mean in practice? To read a book for a character?
It means he might read a book on Stoicism, and as he reads, he's thinking, how does this apply to Devon? What quotes would Devon underline? How can this make Devon a more effective part of the system? He might read a book on comedy writing and think, this is for Mac. How can I use these techniques to make Mac's function social connection stronger?
So he's still engaging with the world, but he's doing it with a specific intention. He's not just consuming. He's looking for new exhibits to bring into his museum.
Exactly. It changes consumption from a passive act of filling time to an active process of stocking the shelves.
Let's talk more about this museum of the mind. Because for Max, this isn't just a metaphor. It lives in a piece of software, in Notion. It's a real digital space.
It's a non-linear interlinked database.
Yeah.
And that non-linear part is the absolute key.
Why is that so important?
Because human memory is associative, not linear. You don't remember your life as a perfect timeline, like a history book. You remember it in flashes. The smell reminds you of a person, which reminds you of a place, which reminds you of a song. It's a web. Max's museum is built to work the same way. A song links to an image, which links to a character profile, which links to a dozen journal entries. You can wander through it. You can follow your curiosity.
The source mentions this concept of multimedia redundancy. That sounds like some kind of tech jargon, but I think the idea behind it is actually quite profound.
It is. It's the idea that an abstract concept becomes more real and more integrated into your brain the more senses it engages.
Yep.
If Tira is just a name on a list, she's weak. She's just a word. But if Tira has a generated face that you can see, visual, and she has a theme song you can hear, audio, and a specific color palette you associate with her, visual, environmental, and a detailed backstory you can read, text, she gains psychological weight. She occupies more neural real estate.
You're essentially hacking your brain's pattern recognition system into treating her as a real, tangible entity.
Precisely. You're making the abstract concrete from multiple angles.
Now, I want to circle back and address the escapism accusation one more time, because we've said this is about integration, but let's be real. Spending hours generating AI art of your imaginary friends. That sounds like escapism. It sounds like retreating from the harshness of the real world.
And it absolutely can walk a very fine line. The potential to use this as an escape is real, But the source makes a critical distinction, a litmus test between the two.
And what's that?
Escapism is using the inner world to separate from the outer world to avoid pain. Integration is using the inner world to engage with the outer world more effectively.
Can you give me a really concrete example of that difference?
Sure. Let's say Max has a difficult family dinner coming up. You know the kind. Lots of old tensions, political arguments, passive-aggressive comments.
I think we all know that dinner.
Right. The path of escapism would be Max goes to the dinner, puts on his headphones, ignores his family, and just daydreams about his characters and their cool adventures. He checks out.
Okay. And integration.
A path of integration would be Max anticipates the stress of the dinner. Before he even leaves the house, he consciously invokes Mac, the diplomat, and Kelly, the empath. He might listen to their playlists on the drive over to get into the right headspace. He walks into that tense situation as the best version of himself, prepared to handle the conflict with grace and humor.
So he's using the characters to show up more fully, not to check out.
Exactly. They become armor and tools for dealing with reality, not a bunker to hide from it.
That brings us to the final and maybe most relatable section of the document, the visitor experience. Because Max builds this entire incredible world, 1,700 songs, endless art and text, and then he realizes something quite painful. Nobody else cares.
The challenge of scale. It's a problem every prolific creator faces.
He has this line, he writes, "Curiosity draws people in, but judgment determines if they stay."
That is such a profound insight for anyone making anything in the internet age.
It's the paradox of abundance, isn't it? If I sent you a link to a Dropbox folder with 1,700 songs by an artist you've never heard of, what would you actually do?
I would close the tab immediately. It's too much work. It's overwhelming. I don't have the time or the energy to sift through all that to find the one or two good tracks.
Exactly. We live in an age of infinite content.
Yeah.
Access is not the problem anymore. Filtering is the problem. Curation is the new currency.
And this is where Max introduces this brilliant, counterintuitive idea about judgment as a tool. We're usually taught that judgment is a bad thing. Don't be judgmental. But in the context of an archive or a body of work, judgment is an act of love.
Judgment is love. Explain that.
If you love your visitor, if you respect their time and attention, you don't dump your entire chaotic hard drive on them. You curate. You act as their guide. You say, hey, I made 1,700 songs, but honestly, 1,600 of them are mediocre experiments. Here are the top 10. Start here. That act of judging your own work, of filtering the noise for them, is what makes the museum accessible and welcoming.
So the archive itself, the curation of it, becomes the product.
Yeah.
The organization is the value you provide.
Yes. He realizes he's not just a songmaker or a writer. He's a world builder, a curator, an archivist. And to let other people into that world, he has to build clear gateways and entry points.
Like a Meet the Team page or guided playlists or which character are you today? Quizzes.
Exactly. You don't just let people wander aimlessly in the warehouse. You build a beautiful, well-lit, guided tour through the best exhibits.
It's so interesting because it really shifts the definition of what a creator is in the 21st century. He's almost like a library director for his own soul.
That's a beautiful image, a library director of the soul.
So we've covered the cast, the evolution, the mediums, and the museum. We've gone from scribbles on Uno cards to complex AI symphonies. I want to bring this all back down to earth, back to the person listening to this right now. The person who is stuck in traffic or doing the dishes. They probably aren't going to go home and generate 1,700 songs.
Probably not, and they don't have to.
So what is the core takeaway? What is the single nugget of wisdom here for the casual user? The person who just wants to feel a little more in control of their own head?
I think it comes all the way back to that very first question you asked me. Do you feel like the same person in the spreadsheet and at the party?
Right.
The takeaway is this. You are not a monolith. You are not one single static thing. You are a community. You are a messy, loud, contradictory committee of desires, fears, and ambitions.
And the source argues that's okay.
It's not just okay. It's a feature, not a bug. It's necessary for a complex life. The problem isn't the existence of the different voices. The problem is the chaos and the disorganization. The key takeaway is that you have the power to call the meeting to order.
You can be the chairperson.
You can be the chairperson, you can name the parts, you can listen, you can say, oh, that's my inner skeptic, Kenny, talking. Thank you, Kenny, for your input. I appreciate you looking out for me. Now I need to hear from my inner dreamer.
It's about taking the seat at the head of the table in your own mind.
Intentional authorship. You don't have to just be a character in the movie of your life reacting to the plot. You can be the director.
I love that. Okay, before we sign off, I want to leave the listeners with a piece of homework, a thought experiment, because the source asks a question near the end that I found really, really challenging.
The missing voice question, right?
That's the one. Max poses this question. If you had to design your own internal cast based on your life right now, which voice is the hardest for you to hear?
Oof, that hits home. Because we all have dominant voices that are way too loud, and we have quiet ones we've neglected.
Exactly. Maybe you have a very loud Val. You're all disciplined, you work hard, you never stop, you're always productive. But maybe, if you're honest, you can't hear your Addie at all. You literally cannot hear the voice that says, it's okay to just play. It's okay to do nothing and just enjoy it.
Or the reverse. Maybe you're all Kelly, all empathy, all caregiving, giving everything you have to other people, and you can't hear your Liz. You can't hear the voice of healthy ambition that says, what about me? What do I want for myself?
The voice you struggle to hear. The one that feels foreign or even scary to you.
That's usually the subpersonality you need to consciously develop next. That's your growth edge. That's your project.
So that's the challenge for you as you go about your day. Find the quiet voice, the one that's been silenced.
Yeah.
Give it a name, maybe even, find one song that represents it. Give it a playlist. And just see what happens when you decide to hand it the microphone for a little while.
You might be very surprised by what it has to say.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. Go build your museums.
See you in the archives.
Until next time.